Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Data-Driven Policymaking Week, presented to you by Policy Cloud. We are today at number 4 already, the fourth and final one on open data policies for citizens. I'm Marieke Willems from Trust IT, and I will be moderating this webinar for you today. And we'll be giving people a few more moments to join us so we can all join together. So thanks again for joining us at the Data-Driven Policymaking Week. I see people are slowly starting to join, so that's great. Let's give them a few more minutes to join, a few more seconds. So today we have arrived to the 4th edition in this Data-Driven Policymaking Week. Today we'll be addressing the open data policies for citizens together with Francesco Mureddu and Ben Willems from the Camden borough. Let's see, we're slowly starting to join. That's great. So let's start. And then people can still join. Okay, so welcome, good afternoon to the Data-Driven Policymaking Week. We've arrived to the number 4, the final and 4th number of our webinars of this series. This webinar will focus on the open data policies for citizens. I'm Marieke Willems from Trust IT. I will be moderating this webinar for you today. And the webinar is offered to you by the Policy Cloud project. And okay, so you have entered the webinar in listen-only mode. That doesn't mean that that you can't tell us anything. You can put your comments and your questions in the lower part of the Zoom platform. You see a chat and a Q&A there. You can paste your comments, your questions for our speakers there. And you can also raise your hand and we can then unmute you so that you can pose your question yourself. And rest me to say that the recordings and the slides will be made available after the webinar series so that you can revisit them afterwards. So let's start. So today with me, Francesco Mureddu, Director of the Lisbon Council for Economic Competitiveness and Social Renewal, and one of our members of the Policy Cloud Impact Creation Board. We're very happy to have you here. Francesco, thanks for joining. Ben Willems, Senior Data Engineer in the Camden Council, also from leading the pilot on open data policies for citizens. So just to get you briefly acquainted with the Policy Cloud project. So we are an H2020 project that lasts for 3 years. We started in January 2020 and we'll finish in December 2022 with a budget over 5 million euros and 15 partners from the industry, from research and academia, and from the policymaking sector. Now briefly, the Policy Cloud for data-driven policy management will provide integrated reusable models and analytical tools, turning raw data into valuable and actionable knowledge towards efficient policymaking. More about that with Ben later in this webinar. So very briefly, what is it that Policy Cloud will deliver? Well, we'll be delivering an integrated cloud-based environment, technologies for policy optimization, a policy development toolkit, and interoperable reusable models. So all these, so this solution will be implemented in a series of 4 pilot cases. They each cover different societal challenges. So for example, we have this week already been looking at the urban policy making in Bulgaria, the intelligent policies for the food value chain in Spain, the policies against radicalization in Italy, and today we're going to focus on the open data policies for citizens. So we try to focus on each of the pilots in this series of webinars so that policymakers in each of these sectors or related sectors could identify their challenges, could relate to the challenges that our pilots are facing and see the solution that Policy Cloud is providing them with. So today we focus, as said, already on the open data policies for citizens. the agenda of today's introduction that you now had, we then would like to launch a poll, a very short poll to understand who you are. We then move on to the open data policies for citizens, where Ben Willems will talk about the policy challenge that they're facing on a local level and the policy cloud solution that they're implementing to address this challenge. And then Francesco Mureddu of the Lisbon Council think tank will paint the bigger picture and see how it relates to what is happening on European level. And then there's time for the questions and answers. Now, I mean, when you have a comment while you're listening to one of our speakers, if you have a question that jumps up, don't forget it, just put it in the chat and we'll be addressing it later in the Q&A. So for now, Zach, can I ask you to launch the poll so that we understand who's on the call? Thanks. So what stakeholder group do you belong to? So I would like to ask you if you feel more related to policymakers, if you're an IT data specialist, if you're someone from the social services or a sector or other. So what stakeholder group do you belong to? Do you belong to policymakers, IT data specialists, social services, or other? Okay, 20% says data specialist and 80% says other. So who indicated other? Could I ask you to put in the chat what you mean with that? So where you do fit? So how you would describe your stakeholder group? Thanks. Okay, so now I would like to give, oh, I see it in the chat. Research analysts at a think tank, okay. NPO open government, data protection consultant. Great, thanks for letting us know. So that's really interesting also for our speakers to understand who they're speaking with. Okay, so then I would like to give the floor to Ben Willems. Ben, while you are going to put your slides ready, I'll be briefly presenting you. So Ben Willems is a senior data engineer with the data analytics department with the London Borough of Camden. So he's responsible for the development of ClickSense dashboards, sub-business object reports, and rapid applications. He has been the technical lead for a number of projects and has developed numerous applications, dashboards, and reports for legal, finance, and housing departments within the council. He has extensive knowledge on data manipulation, data analysis, and is dealing with complex business requirements, as well as adapting systems to comply with the different data sources. Thanks, Ben. The floor is yours.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Perfectly, thanks.
Okay, cool. So I'll be presenting the use case 4 in regards to citizens' policies. So our use case is based on unemployment and looking at how the unemployment rate affects our community in economic ways and looking at the social aspects, not just the financial issues caused by unemployment. So our main challenges with the policies that are being designed is that in order to track the sort of social and economic factors and relate them to unemployment, it's quite difficult because it's one of those factors that's not easy to trace or easy to link evidence-wise. But through research, we know that when unemployment rates are high, they can stem to lots of negative factors that can affect our citizens and our borough as a whole and the citizens that we're responsible for. So we believe that with the Policy Cloud project and the idea of being able to implement our open data sets, we can use the tool to help produce good insight and analytics that can help policymakers with the decision-making process. So with the visualizations and the outputs produced from the toolkit, they'll be able to get, they'll be able to see good insight into key trends and factors that they might have not been able to have been aware of with just static reporting and figures. So some of the main challenges we face with our policymakers and sort of with open data is obviously legislations, because we're part of the UK, and you know, we have to be, especially this is a project, a European-based project, and we're working with different partners, so we have to be conscious of you know, legislation and how, even though it is open data, there still might be different sort of legislations in regards to how the data is processed and managed and so forth. So yeah, the main purpose of our use case is to help with a reduction in unemployment rates, tackle issues, social issues such as gender bias, and to overall create effective policies. So, you know, the policy creation process is quite complex, and the policy creators might be under pressure, not have a lot of time to reflect. So it's always any help is really appreciated, and we want to use this platform to try and help to create not just any style of policies, but effective long-term policies that will benefit our citizens and local borough in a positive way. So to go over our open data, the data that we were using for this scenario, Camden actually have hundreds of open data sets available online. If you can see, I've just included a screenshot of one of the data sets that we are using. So to track unemployment rates, we use a count of people within the borough that are claiming a job seekers allowance. So it's job seeker allowance is a sort of it's a payment subsidy from the government that will help people that are unemployed looking for work and to sustain themselves while they're unemployed and looking for work. We use these figures to sort of track how many people within our borough are unemployed. So the main gist of our open data is coming from these types of data sets. So as you can see, we've got information such as the dates of when people, you know, registered to claim job seekers. We've got geographical locations, genders, age groups, and lots of valuable information we can use to produce analytics. So in regards to our use case today, I'll be going through two scenarios. So the two scenarios will be based on predictive analysis and trend analysis. And again, in regards to helping policy creators during the policy creation process, we believe that predictive analysis and trend analysis is a good way of outputting visualizations and useful insights to help with the policy creation process. And to reiterate, as I said before, the primary function of local government is to help reduce risks faced by society. So we're also trying to not only create effective policies, but sort of policies that help with prevention. So not only just, you know, dealing with the direct problem of high unemployment rates, but also trying to prevent them at the same time and learn from the open data available to produce insights to learn as to why did the unemployment rates become so high in a specific given moment in time. So yeah, as scenario A is the trend analysis. So what we hope to get out of the platform is to input our open data sets and then be produced with outputs of, you know, useful KPIs and statistics about the numbers of citizens claiming the benefits I mentioned before, good analytics that can help with decision making, different types of useful insights that the policy creator can use to help during the policy creation process. And the trend analysis is where we will be closely looking at specific action, specific sort of parts such as age and maybe gender. So we can also tackle social issues where there might be a case where, you know, there's a sort of gender bias where we might notice, for example, the unemployment rate is high in females in across across our borough that we're responsible for, and then we might have to take in, you know, create policies to have preventive actions to sort of tackle that sort of issue. So that's the scenario A. And here's an example of a sort of visualization which we hope to see and produce from the toolkit. So which gives you a sort of flavor and example of how what we can use to help the policy creation process, because we can see how our counts account for maybe across different boroughs and different regions within the UK. So as you can see, we've got the number, and then you can see there's a massive slide up within a specific month. So that sort of insight can help us to highlight and look into what event or what incident happened during that month in time to cause a massive spike, and then policy creators can sort of take action. So the second one is more time-based and statistics based off different periods of time, more to do with sort of comparative analysis, in the sense where we're going to maybe check how unemployment was affected in maybe 1 year or in comparison to another year, and sort of help to maybe do some sort of predictive analysis to sort of predict outcomes and how rates could fluctuate across years. So with the useful thing about predictive analysis is that you'll be able to maybe sort of intervene and take preventive action if you notice that a spike is going to happen within the upcoming year. So here's another sort of visualization where we analyze sort of claimants across the number of different claimants across periods of time. So in conclusion, do you say the advantages of using a sort of policy toolkit platform is it's a cloud-based technology which is obviously cutting edge in a sense where you're not limited to your infrastructure. So the toolkit will be sort of login based, so you have your credentials and your login to use the sort of platform. So which is really good for smaller organizations that might not have the infrastructure to store lots of different types of servers and capabilities to sort of analyze their own open data and so forth. So which is a massive benefit. The multiple scenarios and different open data sets produced by our pilot and the other pilots sort of show how robust the actual toolkit is, in a sense where it's adaptable, because you have different, it's taken in different open data sets and it's being expanded across different types of scenarios to help tackle different types of needs and produce solutions for different types of scenarios and problems, which is really good. And also, it's not just limited to the visualizations, and the issues are not just limited to just Camden alone. Other European businesses and participants can also learn from the visualizations, who also might be experiencing similar problems within within their councils or their respective communities. So it's a great usage of open data to produce useful insights for many different types of policymakers. And yeah, that's me. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. That's very interesting to see how you have illustrated the local policy challenge that you're facing in the Camden borough, and then the solution that Policy Cloud provides to deal with this challenge. Now, Francesco, I would like to ask you to prepare your slides while I present you. If there are, by the way, if there are any questions for Ben, please put them in the chat or in the Q&A. We'll answer them in the Q&A afterwards. So Francesco Mureddu is the director of the Lisbon Council for Economic Competitiveness and Social Renewal, and one of the Impact Creation board members of the Policy Cloud project. He's an analyst and strategist in innovation and technology policies. And during his career, Francesco has supported, in many cases, driven the design and delivery of consultancy and research projects in a wide variety of topics, including the impact of digital transformation, big data and artificial intelligence, e-government, smart cities, ICT-enabled social innovation, future science, citizen science, research and innovation, and health. Francesco, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Very good presentation, very long. Okay, so I'm going to present a little bit what are the policies that the European Commission is implementing in the last years relating open data. And I'm also going to present some results of a study that we have recently implemented, and some other example in order to to see also what the other cities are doing, like Milan and Helsinki. So the open data initiatives of the European Commission, probably one of the most important is from the let's say practical point of view, is the establishment of the European Open Data Portal that now is in the second version, and it's an initiative in which also the Lisbon Council is involved. And basically, it's the portal where member states are able to link their open data and to make them available. A second very interesting initiative is the impact assessment study of the list of high-value data sets to be made available by member states under the PSI Directive. Then we will see what the PSI Directive is. So it's a study that is just finished, and that will be presented by myself in the 2021 Data Week at the end of May. And basically in the study, we tried to do an assessment of the economic and social value of opening data sets which are considered high value, so geospatial, Earth observation and environment, meteorological data set, statistics like statistics on economics, companies and company ownership, like the data about revenues of companies that are potential competitors, and also mobility. A third initiative, very important, that is not legal, but it's more a policy initiative, is the communication towards a common European data space that basically address the reuse of public and publicly funded data in order to constitute an European data space in the future. Regarding the more legal part, we have the PSI Directive. So the Public Sector Information Directive. The first version of this text aimed to basically to boost the reuse of information that is not only created by the public sector, but is detained by the public sector, and that is paid with public money. So it's obvious that it has to be made available for the population. So the first version is in 2003. The revised version, 10 years later, in 2013, basically extended the scope of which kind of data should be made available. And it's also created a special reuse regime for the cultural sector. And also was aimed to introducing a set of practical measures like machine-readable formats, central repositories, in order to facilitate the discovery and reuse of public sector information. Lately, in 2018, there has been a proposal for a recast of the directive, which aims to reduce market entry barriers by lowering charges for the reuse, increase the availability of data by bringing new types of public and publicly-funded data into the directive, and also basically required a more transparent process for the establishment of public-private arrangement, and increase the business opportunities by publishing, by encouraging the publication of dynamic data in order to boost the uptake of APIs. And finally, the Inspire Directive. The Inspire Directive is the last legislative act, which is, it's an effort to create an interoperable spatial data infrastructure for sharing geospatial data. And the geospatial data are very important because they can be used for environmental policies, for instance, and also for services related to the environment that are naturally cross-border. So those were the legislative, measures. But what is the impact? Why do we do this legislative measure? What is the impact of open data? Basically, we have an economic impact. From one side, the idea is to create, or to boost, more than create, because it's already there, a data economy in Europe. So the idea is to make data generally more available to SMEs to be reused in order to develop new APIs, oftentimes in combination with other data sets. Another possibilities for consumer benefits, so for citizens, in order to increase the range of services that are available for citizens. Second point is innovation. Making more data available will boost public sector innovation. For instance, there is the the use of LIDAR, the LIDAR data sets for rainwater flood management at local level or for archaeological discoveries. Secondly, it also boosts, as we said, the economy, so citizen innovation and entrepreneurship. Like the European Data Portal lists a lot of data, environmental and Earth observation data that are used for agricultural purposes. Then we have an impact on public sector, public services performance. It's clear that if the public sector publishes the data, then there is a lot of scrutiny on what the public sector is doing. Like the example that was presented by Ben, clearly, if you publish the data on the people that is getting support, people will check that that really citizens in need are getting that support. Secondly, the ease of access of information increases the trust towards the public sector, towards the government, because transparency increases and people is more engaged. And finally, it is a crucial point in the environmental and management and special planning. An example is a project that it's a proposal that we are working at the moment in which basically we try to develop let's say a support decision system that uses and basically combines and makes interoperable data from regarding environment from stations that are spread around the cities, data from wearables that are worn by citizens, and also satellite data in order to establish more sustainable mobility plans at city level and at metropolitan city level. Cities that are also working towards opening their data are the city of Milan. There is a portal Dati Comune Milano, then I will briefly show it. And basically they release a lot of data on air quality, on management of urban areas, maps, bike sharing, temperatures, building retrofit, urban regeneration, living lab areas, renewable energy. So those data are very interesting and they are made available and can be reused. Another case is the one of Helsinki, which basically has a city spatial data API, and and they release a lot of data related to erosion or the spatial planning of the city. I can see if I can show the two portals. No. Oh, sorry, 1 second. Okay, this is the portal by Helsinki. So it's this searchable, and you can find all the data sets and all the APIs that allows you to download the data, to use the data. And you have also a lot of data sets that are basically classified in a number of topics. And you also have some kind of case studies. And likewise, Open Data, which is the portal of Milan, also contains a set of data sets that are classified, and also APIs that help you to reuse the data. This, for instance, is the okay. This is basically the open data related to the expenditure and the revenues of the city. So it's very interesting to see that. Relating to my presentation, I'm done. So welcome. You are welcome to ask any question.
Thanks, Francesco. So before we go on with the questions, there are a few questions that we would like to ask the audience. So Zach, can I ask you to launch the Slido? So, and if you have any upcoming questions, also please add them to the chat. I see there's already one question there. You can put them also in the Q&A, or you can raise your hand. We'll find them. So for now, thanks, Zach. So would like to ask you to join us at slido.com and then enter the number 891289, or go directly through the Q&R code so that we can ask you a few questions. So we would like to ask you if you are currently using data-driven instruments for policy making. So you can answer with yes, no, but I'm interested in doing so, or no, I'm not interested. So we would like to ask you to join us at slido.com. With the number 891289, and provided with answers to the question, are you currently using data-driven instruments for policy making? So you said yes, and you said no, but I'm interested in doing so. Okay, that's interesting. Good, let's go to the next question. So there we would like to ask you, do you have any challenges when considering evidence-based policymaking? So here you can answer no, it's already quite easy. Or are you facing technical challenges? Are you facing challenges in obtaining relevant data? or are you facing challenges in implementation or in competency? So that's related to skills. Challenges in obtaining relevant data and in implementation. Okay, it's quite aligned with what we saw in the other webinars as well. Good. The next question. Would you be interested in implementing a cloud-based solution for data-driven policymaking like Policy Cloud? A yes, a maybe, or a no? This is what you can answer here. Okay, yes, great. So that's a nice answer. So we obviously we are open to, you can contact us through through the website, through the mail, through our social media. Okay, thanks, Zach. Oh, there's one more question. Do you have the necessary skills in your organization to operate a solution like Policy Cloud? So you can answer there, yes, no, we would prefer to contract it as a service, or a simple no. Okay. So it's both yes, great. Okay, thanks. So let's move on to the Q&A. And I see that there's one question already, or a comment in the chat. By Oliver Rack, thanks for, if interested, the German assessment on HVD for Germany. And you put in here a link. Oliver, I don't know if you want to comment on this. This is interesting. Can we unmute Oliver, please?
Hi, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay,
Hi, Oliver.
thank you. So also thank you for the well done socioeconomical assessment for the high value data from the Lisbon Council, and also from ODI UK. And so I just posted it because several member states do also their assessment what the HVD regulation means for them. What maybe for somebody it's interesting to just auto translate it and see what Germany has assessed on it. What I just want to say is what maybe where I may have a hope from a Policy Cloud is to get more cross-reference ideas on political goals between the data level and the political goals. So what is for demography, what is for the sustainable development goals. So all this open data thing gets more a political idea for the decision makers, because we in Germany, we have still strong problems to have open data because also of federal structures and federal law structures, but also maybe Francesco knows this, the German communities, especially the public enterprises, have been lobbying strong against the high value data regulation. And another nice thing would be how to have someone like a regulation tech tool that helps all, especially civil society, to do oversight measures or oversight activities on implementing the high value data regulation and the PSI Directive. So like harvesting on all federal levels in the European Union, especially in Germany, how far the implementing goes, especially in provision of open data, not just to allow the reuse. It's the problem in Germany is the provision. They don't want to do the efforts to provide the data.
Thanks, Oliver. Ben, do you want to comment? Especially, I think the first part of the question maybe relates more to you. So about how you, in terms of the data level and the political goals.
Yes, so if I understood correctly, I did touch on it briefly in a sense where I felt like going forward with the analytics and the visualizations produced from the toolkit, other councils or SMEs can benefit from the insights on what we've learned from our scenarios. So for example, if you have a similar issue with unemployment or so forth, you can use probably the insights produced from our scenario to help tackle those issues. So obviously where there's common sort of political goals, then I feel like there's some form of data sharing that can be used. Obviously, because with the open data and the legal team involved in the project, there will be a level of data sharing that will be allowed.
Yes, especially I think from this analytic use case, we more and more get the idea what the data, especially, I mean, the open government data, can have used for which political goal, because there are different decision makers with different responsibilities. So it's for us in Germany very important to address them as political decision makers, so they can push the government and say, okay, for demography questions and for this analytics and evidence-based decisions in demographic, we need this data set, and we need this data set and this data set. So to cluster the data sets available by having those use cases of analytics would be very important to get open data more on a level of the political decision makers. It's not that easy in Germany like in the US, where they have since 2019 now the Foundations for Evidence-Based Policymaking Act, and they have put all the topic of open data inside this act. So it's much stronger there. Now we have the HVD regulation, which is really now a little help. And this is why I find it's very important to have some RegTech to do automatically oversight of implementation of the provision of open data. But it's still a problem. You see, France is now very good in open data since they made the Loi République Numérique, the law of the digital republic. And then they described what is the public interest in data, and what is the common good in data, and they say this is our data from the government, and it has to be open. So it's much stronger there. In Germany, it's very very poor, and in addition to that, we have this federal structure. So we need for each level an open data law, and that's quite difficult.
Thanks, Oliver. I think, Francesco, this is also something that you related to when you linked to the Milan APIs as well. Yeah.
No, of course. From one side, you know, I'm aware, you know, of the resistances that you have in Germany regarding open data, and it's really what you have in several countries, because data, you know, keeping their own data also for public agencies and public administrations, it's a power, because data are a kind of a bargain chip for them. So bargaining chip with respect to the other public institutions. So it's true. And I'm also in favor of trying to track the implementation of the PSI Directive and of similar policies. Unfortunately, can I share my screen?
Yes, of course.
I dropped it once at the workshop from the Lisbon Council during the consultation.
Okay.
But it's the Commission who should push it.
Yeah. I mean, for instance, this is a kind of dashboard that we created that track the alignment of the European countries with respect to the European interoperability framework, and tracks also to what extent the EU countries and also some cities are involving citizens in a co-creation of services. So the idea would be to have something like that for the PSI Directive. This is not easy. It's also not easy because it's very difficult to get the data from people is asking the data from the public administrations. But I mean, this is the way to go. So where we check the accessibility of mail registries, API provisions, API users, API calls per month. We only have data from 6 cities at the moment, like for instance Athens, Paris, Milan, Amsterdam, Madrid, and Turin. So this is the way to go. Well, this should be basically increased, and in order to get more data. And what is interesting is also that there are some projects at national level, also because now with the recovery fund a lot of money is coming. So it's interesting to check how the money is used. And this is what is called a Moniton, Project Finder Moniton, from it's from a kind of ethical hackers in Italy. And basically here it tells the idea is to provide a kind of display of which kind of public projects are funded with the recovery fund money, and how much they are funded. So the problem is that all these initiatives are quite limited in scope. In fact, this is just in Italy, and this is just starting. So I'm completely in favor, obviously, of creating some kind of dashboard like this that have a bigger scope, and that are able to, to track the implementation of the PSI Directive, or in a way open data in this sense. I think that the W3C team also is trying to do something like that, a kind of tracking of open data. They are open data enthusiasts. So
thanks, Oliver, also for your question. Let's see if there's other questions in the chat as well. Zach, can you see any other questions? No, then I have another question for you both as well. So so a European strategy for data, we've talked about it already, meant to put people first in developing technology, as well as on the need to defend and promote European values and rights in how we design and make and deploy the technology in the economy. So this is also something that you've already addressed, Francesco. But how, Ben, how is Policy Cloud putting people first?
I believe I can relate this back to our use case scenario, because in relation to the citizens' use case, we're actually tackling social issues within our community. So the success of this use case scenario is proof that we're putting people first, because the toolkit is allowing us to help our citizens get to a better place and tackle issues from unemployment, because there's a lot, as I mentioned before, there's a lot of negative factors that it's quite hard to track how unemployment affects a community or a borough of citizens from a statistical standpoint. But we all know that there's loads of negative social factors and economic factors that come with high unemployment rates. So I feel like with the the good support of us as a public administration council, that's sort of proof that we're putting people first.
And there's also the element, I think this very interesting element also, that that we're looking at co-creation in terms of the development of the tool, so that it's useful also for the people that need to use it in the end. Yeah,
precisely, because I think, yeah, obviously the user friendliness and the adaptability of the toolkit, because as I mentioned before, the saving of costs as well in regards to everything that's going on behind the scenes with the actual toolkit. So yeah, I feel like the adaptability is helpful towards the users, as you said.
Thanks. Francesco, do you want to say anything about that in terms of the wider European ecosystem of co-creation and the importance of it?
Of course, co-creation it's very important from one side, because when you involve citizens in the development of services, you basically save a lot of money, because to have user centricity of the service is much easier. And also people if they are more involved in services, and especially in services reforms, the take up from citizens is higher. What we have seen a lot so far in the European digital services landscape is that there is a lot of supply, and that there is a lot of attention and focus on supply. On the other hand, the attention and focus on the take-up of services by citizens hasn't been, as much focused. So now I think that the things are changing, because we don't only put our focus on the supply of services, but also on the take-up. And the take-up of services, it's basically it mirrors the extent to which co-creation is used, because it mirrors the extent to which user centricity is ensured.
Thanks. And Ben, I mean, we saw in the nice data that you showed that obviously the COVID-19 really had an effect on the data that you showed in terms of the unemployment rate it grew quite a lot in just a few months' time. So in the long run, how could Policy Cloud help with the solution that is providing to also address these kind of challenges?
So as I said before, with the analytics produced, we can learn insights as to with the decision-making process. With the studying the analytics produced, it can help with actually sort of maybe predicting the negative impacts of something like COVID-19, which has obviously affected our community very badly, and sort of help with creating preventive policies that will help to, sort of tackle and protect jobs and help the less fortunate in those types of positions. So I feel like obviously, yeah, with the insights and learning from the actual visualizations and predicting trends and seeing this is useful for the policy makers in the co-creation process.
Thanks. Let me see if there's any questions. Zach, I can't see the questions. Can you tell me if there are?
No, there aren't any questions.
No. Then I would like to ask you the final question, and then we close off. So now that we've mapped the challenge of the open data policies for citizens on the local level that you're addressing, Ben, but also putting it into more of a European context with you, Francesco. So could I ask you to give policymakers one actionable recommendation that to policymakers that are dealing with similar challenges? Francesco, do you want to go first?
Okay, I go first. So from one side, what I would advise them is to share success stories. So I mean, you need to show everybody that opening data is very useful, and that opening data is a boost for economics. So the idea for me would be, okay, I will share the success story of a company that has implemented, has created an API based on the data that I provide. So this is first the first thing. Secondly, is to create portals that are usable, in the sense that they are accessible by everybody, not only by the 50 gigs in town, but like the portal by the borough of Camden that is gonna have a very nice visualizations that that are clear and that can be understood by everybody. So those are the two.
Thanks.
My two.
So to share success stories and a portal, usable portal. Thanks.
Yeah, visualizations, accompanying
excellent.
services, something like that.
Thanks. Ben, what do you recommend to
I recommend
policymakers?
that policymakers initiate discussions about relevant KPIs and requirements from data they might have already available. So start discussions as to, for example, oh, we have statistics or open data based on air quality, but we're not actually using it at the moment. Or we have open data available on antisocial behavior, but we're not actually using it. So have those discussions to say, okay, we want to learn, more about X, Y, or Z within your open data sets. Have those sort of discussions so you're ready to sort of have your set requirements to say, okay, we know what we want from our data. And then if we see anything in the platform that's already being done, we can, use their visualizations or use their insights on the data that they've produced already, and to meet our sort of needs and requirements. So I feel that that's a way that a policymaker should prepare.
Thanks. So you're pointing to discussions, to the clear definition of the requirements and a reuse of the data that are already available.
Yes.
Thanks. Then I would like to thank all of those that have joined the webinar. Thank you for joining us in the 4th edition of this week. And then I want to thank you very much, Francesco and Ben, for being our speakers of today and for your really interesting insights and your wonderful discussion. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
No worries. Thank you.